July of 2019 was the moment I realized the Florida Everglades held secrets far more horrifying than anything a drill instructor could try to scare into us during training. My name is Marcus Delaney, and I served as a sergeant in the United States Army. What my team faced during what should have been a simple night exercise is the reason I still wake up drenched in sweat. They tell you during basic to expect the unexpected, stay sharp, trust your instincts. But nothing in all my years of service had prepared me for something that should not exist in any world we understand. If you have never walked the Everglades after sunset, you might imagine a swamp full of gators and mosquitoes the size of small aircraft. People think that is all there is, but that idea barely scratches the surface. When the sun slips away, the place changes into something ancient and watchful. The water darkens until it resembles black oil reflecting slivers of moonlight that fight through the dense canopy overhead. The twisted shapes of trees stretch like skeletal arms, and the constant swirling choir of insects, frogs, and unseen creatures builds a wall of sound that somehow makes the quiet moments feel even more disturbing. But I am getting ahead of myself. I should start at the beginning. Our assignment was to run night operations through a remote portion of the Everglades, roughly 40 miles west of Fort Myers. Officially, we were prepping for possible deployment in jungle terrain, learning to navigate swamps' low visibility and unpredictable footing, nothing we had not done before. We had trained in the wetlands of Georgia and Louisiana, and we had even spent a short period cross-training in the Amazon alongside Brazilian units. A swamp was a swamp, or so we thought. The team was small. Only 6 of us. I led the squad. Corporal Felix Arden served as our tracker and point man. The remaining 4 included Private Liam Hatcher, who had joined us barely 3 months earlier. Liam was young at 22, bright-eyed and eager, though not foolish like some new recruits. He listened, he watched, he asked questions. If he kept that mindset, he might have survived his first deployment intact. We inserted at roughly 2100 hours as the last streaks of daylight drained away. The air hung heavy with heat so thick it tasted like warm syrup. Our path covered 8 miles of swamp and wetland. The objective was simple: move through the terrain, identify hazards, and reach the extraction point within about 7 hours. Easy, routine, nothing special. The first hour rolled by exactly as expected. We moved in staggered column, Arden on point with night vision, the rest of us maintaining distance and keeping weapons at low ready. Water clung to everything, sometimes only ankle deep, sometimes high enough to swallow our knees. Mud roots and unseen shapes below the surface made each step a test of balance and patience. Arden proved once again why he was the best tracker I ever worked with. Raised in the wilderness of Montana, he could read terrain the way most people read morning news. Every few minutes he crouched, studied something unseen by the rest of us, then signaled for us to follow or adjust course. I never questioned his judgment. At around 2230 hours, Arden halted. His posture stiffened. He lifted his fists, signaling all stop and all silence. I eased up beside him and whispered a question, but he only pointed at the ground and motioned for me to look through his goggles. What I saw coldly knotted my stomach. Tracks, huge tracks, 4 feet apart and pressed deep into firm mud. Each print was circular, maybe 14 inches across, with what looked like long claw impressions. But it was the depth that chilled me. Whatever made them weighed far more than any gator that belonged in this swamp. 3 inches deep at least. No gator moved like that. No animal we knew of did. I asked the question anyway, even though I already knew the answer. Arden shook his head. Wrong pattern, wrong spacing, wrong everything, and worse than that, the edges were crisp and still filling with clear water, which meant the prints were recent, very recent. I told Arden to mark the coordinates. We would report it once we returned. For the moment, we stayed on mission, but heightened our alert level, weapons condition 1. While Arden logged the location, the rest of the team drifted closer, their faces etched with tension. Liam looked torn between fear and excitement, the way new soldiers do when something unexplainable enters their world. He asked if we were good. I told him we were fine and that it was probably just a big gator, but I wanted every set of eyes sharp enough to cut glass. "Felix," I said, "anything strange at all, you tell me instantly." He nodded, and we moved on into a swamp that suddenly felt far more alive than before. We pushed forward again, but whatever steady confidence we had at the start was gone, and every one of us felt it. In the way, our boots sank into the mud a little slower, and in the way, our heads kept turning, as if the darkness itself had grown eyes. The swamp noise seemed louder now, almost hostile, as if the entire Everglades was warning us to turn back. It was about 20 minutes later when Arden froze again, but this time he did not raise his hand or signal a direction change. He simply stared into the murky water to our left. I was about to whisper when I saw it too. Something massive gliding through the black water about 50 yards out. Even through night vision, it looked like a shadow sliding across a deeper shadow, its movement smooth, deliberate, and entirely wrong. It was not the heavy, awkward shuffle of a gator. It was not the splashing chaos of a boar. This thing moved with intention and with awareness. Contact left, I whispered into the radio. Unknown entity moving north to south, approximately 50 yards. My voice tasted like iron. The shape drifted for what felt like an eternity, but was probably no more than 15 seconds before it sank beneath the surface without any noise or ripple, as if the swamp swallowed it whole. We held our breath in complete silence. Even the frogs seemed to go quiet for a moment. Arden finally exhaled and whispered that whatever it was, it had not been a gator. I wanted to tell him he was wrong. I wanted the comfort of a familiar predator, but the truth was undeniable. We all saw it, and whatever it had been did not belong to this world. I tightened formation, 5 meters spacing, no more drifting too far apart. If Arden saw anything remotely unusual, he was to call it immediately. The squad acknowledged, but the fear in their voices was something I had never heard during a training operation. We moved again, but the swamp felt like it was closing around us. Every splash behind us sounded like pursuit. Every rustle above us made fingers tighten on triggers. The heat pressed against our bodies until sweat mixed with swamp water and trickled down our armor like warm streams. Then Liam called out from the right, his voice strangled by tension. He was pointing at a cypress tree just off the route. The bark had been torn open in long vertical gouges that ran nearly 3 feet down the trunk. 5 parallel slashes, each more than an inch wide. Fresh sap glistened in the moonlight. Something with claws had marked it, and whatever it was had been here recently. Very recently. Arden examined the cuts and his face turned grim. Too deep, too deliberate. This was not an animal scratching itself. This was territory marking, a warning or a claim. Before I could answer, a strange sound lifted through the swamp. It started faint like a bubbling hiss echoing across the water, then grew louder, more guttural, more alive. It came from everywhere and nowhere, from the ground and from the trees and from the water around our legs. Then it stopped instantly. The entire swamp fell silent. Not a single insect buzzed. Not a single frog croaked. Even the faint breeze vanished. I had been in the military for more than 15 years and learned that when nature goes still, something terrible is about to happen. I ordered a defensive circle, weapons outward, eyes scanning every angle. We knelt in the mud, forming a tight perimeter. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, but my hands were steady on my rifle. The attack came faster than thought. One moment everything was silent. The next, Liam screamed. I whipped toward him. Something had wrapped around his legs and yanked him backward across the water. He clawed at the mud, desperate to anchor himself, but whatever had him was stronger. His rifle splashed away. Panic distorted his face. Arden sprinted toward him, but before any of us reached them, the ground beneath Liam collapsed. The swamp floor gave way, revealing a concealed drop, almost like a pit covered deliberately with vegetation. A trap built with purpose. Liam vanished into darkness with a strangled cry. We rushed to the edge where a perfectly circular opening about 8 feet wide yawned beneath us. The plants that had covered it looked arranged, not natural. I called down to him, demanding a response. After a few agonizing seconds, Liam answered weakly, saying he was alive, but that something down there was moving, something in the dark with him. I felt ice crawl up my spine. I ordered Arden and Jenkins to get the rope while Thompson and Rodriguez secured the perimeter. The screaming below us faded into trembling breaths, then a slithering wet noise rose from the pit, and I felt my blood turn cold. I shouted for Liam to describe what he was seeing, but his words dissolved into terrified gasps. The thing was close, too close. My instincts screamed at me to run, but training forced me to stay locked in position. Arden slid beside me with the rope, and I leaned over, shining my light downward. The beam sliced through the darkness and revealed what Liam had tried to describe, and nothing in my life had prepared me for what stared back up from that pit. The light cut into the pit, and the sight that stared back at me felt like something torn from a nightmare that had no right to exist in the real world. The cavity was roughly 15 feet deep, with walls lined in tangled roots and soaked mud, but none of that mattered because my eyes locked instantly on Liam pressed against the far wall, and on the monstrous shape coiled only a few feet from him. Even now, after 3 years of replaying that night, I struggle to find words that come close to describing what we saw. Picture the rough outline of an alligator, then stretch the body long and narrow until it becomes something serpentine yet still thick with muscle. Imagine a skull shaped like a distorted memory of a gator head, only leaner, longer, and filled with row after row of serrated teeth that seemed carved for tearing through bone. Its scales glistened like wet stone, and its body rippled in a slow, hypnotic undulation that told me it could move far faster than anything trapped in a hole had any right to move. But it was the eyes that truly hollowed out my chest. They were not the blank, instinct-driven eyes of a predator. They held recognition, calculation, curiosity. They studied Liam the way a researcher observes something fragile and fascinating. My voice steadied, though everything in me trembled. Liam, listen closely. We are lowering a rope. Do not look at that creature. When I tell you to move, you grab the rope and hold on with everything you have. He whispered that he understood, though the fear in his voice shook like loose glass. Arden wrapped the rope around a cypress trunk while I kept the beam fixed on the creature. It did not charge, it did not retreat, it simply watched, its head swaying gently from side to side as if measuring us. I whispered to Jenkins to prepare his flashlight and to Rodriguez to be ready to fire into the creature if it moved toward Liam. Rodriguez acknowledged, gripping his rifle tighter. The rope dropped into the pit, landing near Liam. The creature followed its descent with eerie precision, its eyes tracking the rope as if puzzled by it. But still it waited, still it watched. I felt the tension stretch until it hurt to breathe. When the rope stopped swinging, I gave the order for the distraction. Jenkins hit the creature with his light, and the reaction was instantaneous. It reared back and released a sound that seemed to shake the mud loose from the walls, a hissing roar so unnatural it clawed at the edges of my sanity. Its body writhed as the beam struck its eyes. I shouted for Liam to move. He lunged, grabbing the rope with every ounce of strength he possessed. The creature whipped toward him with breathtaking speed, its jaws spreading impossibly wide as it launched across the pit. Arden and I pulled the rope with everything we had. My arms felt on fire. Rodriguez opened fire the moment the creature advanced. His rounds tore into its scales, sending flashes of flesh into the air, but the creature barely reacted. It twisted through the mud, its jaws snapping inches from Liam as we heaved him upward. Every pull felt like a battle against time. Liam rose slowly, too slowly, and the creature surged upward again, striking the mud wall so hard the ground trembled. For a second, I was certain it would break free and drag all of us into that pit. But the wall crumbled under its weight, sending it sliding back to the floor in a cascade of roots and mud. We finally hauled Liam over the edge and dragged him 20 feet back before collapsing. His breath shook in ragged gasps, and his entire body trembled. I checked him frantically, but he insisted he had no injuries. I could barely process relief before the ground behind us split with a thunderous crack. I turned in time to see the creature explode out of the side of the pit, bursting through the weakened wall in a spray of earth. Only then did we understand how massive it truly was. Coiled in the pit, it had seemed large. Fully extended, it was immense, 14 feet at least. Its torso as thick as a man. Mud streaked along its body as it lifted itself partly upright, its head rising nearly 8 feet above the ground. Those intelligent eyes found us again, and rage vibrated through its serpentine form. I ordered a fallback with weapons trained on it, but not to turn our backs. The creature hissed again, a sound that felt like pressure building inside my skull. Rodriguez and I opened fire in controlled bursts. Our shots hit. I saw scales tear away. I saw dark blood spray into the air, but the creature did not slow. It followed us with steady, relentless focus, not attacking outright, not rushing, simply stalking like it knew the swamp belonged to it, and we were intruders who would tire long before it did. As we retreated, Arden called over the radio with urgency. He had found more tracks, fresh ones. Multiple sets coming from the east. 2, maybe 3 additional creatures moving toward our position. A cold wave rolled through my chest. We had stumbled into something's territory. We had sprung one of their traps and wounded one of their own. They were hunting us now. I ordered the team to regroup and form a coordinated retreat. We would not scatter. We would not panic. We would move as one unit, fight as one if we had to. Everyone tightened formation. Weapons lifted, eyes wide with fear but also with grim resolve. As we prepared to move, I realized something profound. We were no longer simply soldiers conducting a training exercise. We were prey, and the hunters were closing in. The creature towered above the ruined pit, radiating fury through every scale as we fell back in a tight, staggered line and dragged Liam with us. His breathing was still uneven, but the terror in his eyes had sharpened into determination. I shouted for everyone to move while keeping weapons locked on the monster as it slithered from the shattered earth and advanced with slow, predatory confidence. It lifted the upper part of its body again, reaching nearly 8 feet high, and stared at us with an eerie intelligence that made my skin crawl. Rodriguez and I opened fire in measured bursts. Muzzle flashes split the darkness as bullets tore into its hide, but the creature reacted only with a slow, twisting recoil, more annoyed than injured. We put distance between us, yet it continued shadowing our retreat with deliberate patience, as though it understood we were tiring. As we pushed through the swamp, Arden called over the radio with dread tightening every word. He had spotted more tracks, fresh ones, multiple sets moving toward us from the east, at least 2, maybe 3 of the same monstrosities converging on our location. That knowledge hit me harder than any ambush could. We had stepped into their domain and survived long enough to wound one of them. Now they were gathering, hunting us as a unified pack. I ordered everyone to hold formation. No running blindly, no breaking apart. We would move as a single body or die alone. Arden took point. Rodriguez and Thompson covered the flanks, Liam and Jenkins at rear security. I floated between them, watching for the slightest motion in the dark water. The swamp was shifting around us. The hissing, gurgling sound of these creatures echoed from the shadows like a warning and a promise. We advanced northeast, pushing through reeds and black water and tangled growth. Thompson whispered, "Contact right." I snapped my rifle toward the movement and caught sight of another creature gliding between the trees about 30 yards away, its scales reflecting faint moonlight. It tracked us without rushing, waiting for the right angle. "Keep moving," I ordered, eyes open, weapons hot. The formation tightened and fear sharpened into cold focus. Another call came from Rodriguez. "Contact left." 2 more shapes circling in tandem. They were studying us, testing us like wolves gauging prey. The swamp felt smaller with every step. As we advanced, the terrain widened into a clearing where moonlight spilled across something that forced us all to halt. A mound of bones lay stacked in the center of the open space. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, bleached white by time and exposure. Bones from deer and wild boar and gators, and some that were unmistakably human. Arden confirmed what none of us wanted to acknowledge. This was not random. This was a feeding ground, and we had been herded straight into it. The hissing rose around us from all directions, sounding like laughter made of steam. They had guided us here on purpose. This open field was their battleground, their arena, their ritual place of death. I lifted my rifle and whispered the hardest command of the night. "Fix bayonets." The team obeyed without a second thought, even though the fear in their movements was impossible to hide. I felt that electric tension, the unmistakable sensation that comes right before a fight that might be your last. I took a moment to assess. 4 confirmed creatures circling at the edges, possibly more unseen. Each waiting for the first mistake, each waiting for the moment we were most vulnerable. They were thinking, planning, communicating. That was the part that haunted me most. Arden scanned with night vision and confirmed the pattern. They were closing the circle around us inch by inch. I made the call. We could not stay here or we would be surrounded until our ammo ran dry. We would cross straight through the clearing past the bone pile and break their formation. Then we would run the remaining 3 miles to extraction and fight like hell the entire way. I told the team the truth. Some of us might not make it across, but if we panicked, all of us would die here and feed this field. Every soldier nodded in grim acceptance. Our formation tightened until shoulders nearly brushed. Liam stayed in the center, protected by the ring of rifles. On my mark, we surged forward. The moment our boots stepped into the clearing, the creatures hissed louder than before. Shadows flickered at the perimeter, moving in sync around us as if the entire swamp was alive. Bones cracked under our weight as we advanced at combat speed. We kept our rifles aimed outward and our breaths locked tight. I could feel unseen eyes tracking each of us, judging, waiting. The bone mound grew larger with every stride, looking like a monument built from years of kills. I pushed the thought away. We would not be added to it. Halfway across the clearing, and the first rush came. A creature lunged from the right flank, tearing through brush with terrifying speed. Rodriguez spotted it first and opened fire. I joined him, our rounds slicing through the air. The monster twisted through our gunfire, serpentine and relentless. It got within 10 yards before our combined shots finally staggered it, forcing it to veer off with dark blood trailing behind. But it did not retreat far. It circled, preparing again. We pushed harder, 20 yards to the bone pile, 10 yards. Then all hell erupted as the remaining creatures launched a coordinated attack from multiple directions. 3 simultaneous strikes designed to split our line and pull us apart. Gunfire thundered across the clearing, muzzle flashes lit the night. Hissing roars rose in a deafening chorus. Thompson barely avoided a crushing bite. Liam dropped to the ground on instinct. The largest creature we had seen yet charged straight for him, its body scarred and massive. It leapt, jaws open wider than any natural predator. Jenkins stepped into its path and fired a burst straight into its mouth. The explosion of impact flipped the creature midair, and it crashed into the dirt, thrashing violently. I screamed for everyone to move. We sprinted past the bone pile, past the dying creature, and into the cover of the trees on the opposite side while the others regrouped behind us. The swamp exploded with motion as the surviving creatures surged after us. But we had momentum now, and we were not stopping. Not here. Not ever. We tore through the trees with every creature in that cursed swamp, closing in around us, their hissing cries rising like a hunting song, as we pushed ourselves harder than we ever had in our lives. Our formation locked tight as we ran, Arden leading with razor focus, while Liam stayed protected in the center, and the rest of us covered every angle. The swamp around us felt alive and angry. The water churned at our feet. Branches snapped in the darkness. Shapes moved in rapid bursts through the underbrush, always close enough to hear but never close enough to see clearly until they chose their moment. Thompson was the first to call contact. One creature gliding along our right flank about 30 yards out, matching our speed with silent, terrifying precision. I ordered everyone to keep pace and not engage unless absolutely necessary. Those things were faster in the swamp than we were, and firing blindly would only give them an advantage. Rodriguez then whispered another warning on our left. 2 more were pacing us. Their silhouettes darted between roots and shadow, only visible when moonlight struck their scales. The sound of their hissing came and went in waves like breath from the earth itself. They were circling, tightening, closing in for the right angle. They wanted us tired, they wanted us panicked, and they wanted to choose when the final strike would begin. We pressed harder across the treacherous terrain, but the swamp refused to give us easy ground. Mud sucked at our boots. Roots grabbed at our ankles. Every step felt like a wrestling match with the earth. Then we broke through the trees and stumbled into another clearing. The moment our feet touched the open space, the stench of death struck us like a wall. Bones again, a massive field of them. Only this pile was bigger and older than the first. A mountain of skeletal remains stacked in chaotic heaps. Wildlife remains, gator skulls, deer ribs, and more human bones than I ever want to remember, all piled with grotesque intention, not scattered from random animal kills. Collected, staged, displayed, Arden froze and whispered that this was no accident. This was where the creatures dragged anything they captured, a ritual place, a final destination. The air vibrated with the hissing from all directions. They had led us here, funneled us straight into their chosen killing ground. The circle had begun to close before our eyes. I felt that cold pressure in my chest, the kind that comes before every major fight, the kind that tells you the next few minutes will decide who walks away. I ordered everyone to prepare for a breakthrough. Staying meant dying. They would surround us and cut us down methodically, just as they had done to everything else that ended up in this graveyard. We would charge through at full speed in a tight diamond formation. Push past the bone field and break into the thicker trees beyond. If we hesitated for even 1 second, none of us would leave this place alive. The team tightened formation until we were shoulder to shoulder. Weapons raised, bayonets fixed, Liam breathing hard but steady. Good, he would need that resolve. When I gave the command to move, we surged forward at combat sprint. Bones cracked under our boots, shadows darted around us. Their hissing rose into a violent chorus. They knew we were trying to escape their trap. They meant to stop us. We were halfway across when the first creature charged from the right with explosive speed. Rodriguez opened fire. His rounds lit the clearing like strobe lights. The creature dodged and twisted through the bursts, its body rippling with impossible agility. Another creature came from behind us, testing our rear defense. Jenkins pivoted and fired, driving it back into the tree line for a moment. The air shook with gunfire and the horrific sound of claws scraping bone. We kept pushing. Then 3 more creatures attacked together, forming a triangle of moving death around us. The one in front was massive, over 16 feet long, its body scarred as if it had fought battles most predators would not survive. Its eyes locked onto Liam. It charged with terrifying purpose. I screamed for Liam to get down just as the creature launched itself into the air, its jaws spreading wider than anything I had ever seen. For a frozen second, I thought Liam was gone, but Jenkins stepped in front of him and fired a burst straight into the creature's open mouth. The impact blew through its skull, snapping it backward mid-flight. It crashed into the dirt, thrashing in a frenzy of dying convulsions. We did not waste a second. We sprinted past the bone pile, past the dying monster, and into the trees while the remaining creatures roared behind us. The forest erupted with movement as they gave chase, but now we had momentum. Extraction was still 3 miles away. 3 miles of swamp filled with nightmares that had decided we were prey worth hunting. They pursued us relentlessly, appearing and disappearing through the trees ghost-like, except for the flashes of their scales reflecting stray bits of moonlight. Every 100 yards one would rush from the side, testing our formation. Each time we unleashed a wall of suppressing fire until it backed off, leaving behind only ripples of disturbed water. Our ammo dipped dangerously low, but stopping meant death. So we ran, hearts pounding, boots slipping, muscles screaming, breath burning, feet soaked, eyes scanning, minds focused only on survival. Arden finally shouted that we were half a mile from extraction. Hope flickered through us like a spark. But the creatures sensed it too. Their hissing sharpened, their movements grew more aggressive. They knew we were close to reaching ground where they would lose their advantage. At about 200 yards out, they launched their final assault. All of them, all at once, from every angle. A wave of scales, teeth, and fury crashing toward us in a perfectly timed strike, meant to end everything, and for a moment it nearly did. Their final charge hit us like a tidal wave of scales and teeth and snarling fury, exploding from every direction at once, as if the entire swamp had come alive to devour us. Thompson was hit first. One of the creatures slammed into him from the flank with tremendous force, knocking him off his feet before he could even shout. His rifle flew from his grip and landed in the mud as the creature reared up above him, preparing to strike with jaws wide enough to split him in two. Rodriguez did not hesitate. He hurled himself onto the monster, tackling it around what could only be described as its upper neck, driving his combat knife deep into the writhing mass of muscle and scale. Both of them crashed to the ground, rolling violently through mud and water. I tried to sprint toward them, but Arden grabbed my arm and pointed ahead with raw urgency. 2 more creatures were charging us from the front. Massive, fast, hungry, Arden and I opened fire, instantly walking our shots up their bodies, aiming for the head and eyes. One creature stumbled under the barrage and fell thrashing into the underbrush, but the other kept coming, its body undulating like a nightmare serpent, determined to tear through our ranks. Jenkins and Thompson scrambled toward Rodriguez, dragging him away from the creature he had tackled. That beast was wounded, bleeding heavily and convulsing, but 2 more were already taking its place as if drawn by the scent of blood. Liam appeared by my side, his rifle empty, his bayonet fixed, and his expression hard with a resolve I had not expected from a soldier so young. He stood ready to face whatever came next, even though he had never seen real combat before this night. "Fall back," I ordered. "Everyone fall back to the extraction point." We retreated in coordinated steps, firing controlled bursts, forcing the creatures back only inches at a time. The trees thinned out, moonlight widened above us, and then at last we broke through into the small clearing designated as our extraction zone. It was a rough patch of solid ground, barely large enough for a helicopter, but to us it felt like a sanctuary. We formed a tight defensive circle, weapons outward, eyes scanning the surrounding shadows. The creatures followed only to hesitate at the edge of the clearing. They paced back and forth, hissing and rumbling, but they refused to enter. Their hesitation told me everything. They were ambush predators, and the open ground offered them no cover. Here under the sky, with no swamp shadows to hide in, they lost the tactical advantage that made them so deadly. Rodriguez staggered into position, bruised but still standing. I checked on everyone quickly. No one was fatally injured, though every one of us carried cuts, bruises, and the weight of what we had seen. I grabbed my radio and sent the call. "Blackhawk 2-7, this is Night Stalker 6. Do you copy?" Static answered at first, and then the crew replied loud and clear. They requested a status update. I told them we needed immediate extraction from primary landing zone due to hostile contact. "Hostile contact," they repeated with confusion. They asked for clarification. I stared at the glowing eyes watching us from beyond the tree line and chose my words carefully. "Negative. I will explain once aboard." "How fast can you reach us?" They responded they were 15 minutes out and asked if we could hold position. I looked at the creatures still circling in the shadows. They continued pacing but did not advance. Almost as if they sensed something beyond them, something greater approaching. "Affirmative," I answered, though my heart pounded with uncertainty. Holding position. Those 15 minutes crawled past like an eternity. None of us spoke. None of us dared lower our rifles. The creatures hissed, circled, watched with those cold, analyzing eyes. They wanted us. They were hungry, but they would not step into the clearing. We were suspended between life and death, with only a ring of mud and moonlight protecting us. Then finally, the distant thumping of helicopter blades drifted through the air. It grew louder, rising above the trees like salvation arriving from the sky. The creatures reacted instantly. Their hissing intensified, and they began to retreat into the shadows, moving backward with slow, controlled motions, as if slipping away before a greater predator. The Blackhawk appeared overhead, its searchlight sweeping across the clearing in a wide arc. The moment the beam touched the tree line, the creatures scattered, fleeing into the swamp with unnatural swiftness, disappearing as though they had never existed at all. The helicopter touched down, and we ran for it with everything we had left diving aboard, even as the wheels lifted from the ground. The crew stared at us wide-eyed as they took in the mudblood, and terror etched into our faces. I watched the Everglades fade into darkness beneath us, the place where we had nearly died, the place where something unearthly hunted in packs. The crew chief asked what had happened. I told him I would explain during debrief. But even as I said it, I wondered how anyone could ever believe what we saw. 3 days later, after medical checks and restless nights, we sat in a windowless room with high-ranking officers and unnamed civilians who listened to our accounts and gave us an official explanation that felt like a lie thicker than the swamp itself. But that part of the story belonged to the final chapter that none of us would ever forget. The helicopter lifted us away from that cursed swamp, and for a brief moment as the rotors thumped above us and the clearing shrank into darkness below, I believed we were finally safe. But the truth was safety became a complicated idea after that night. The crew tried to ask what had attacked us, but none of us answered. Not because we refused, but because our minds had not yet figured out how to shape those horrors into words that would make sense to anyone who had never stared into the eyes of something that should not exist. When we reached base, the medics swarmed us inspecting bruises, cuts, exhaustion, and shock, but they could not treat the deeper wound left inside each of us. After 3 days of forced rest and silent reflection, we were summoned to a briefing in a small windowless room inside a nondescript building that smelled of stale air and secrets. Inside sat 2 colonels, a major, 2 civilians with blank expressions, and a man who claimed to be from the Florida Wildlife Commission, though every instinct told me he was lying. They separated us for individual testimonies and questioned us for hours. Each of us told the exact same story because the truth leaves no room for variation. We described the tracks, the sinkhole trap, the elongated serpentine bodies, the intelligent eyes, the ambush patterns, the coordinated assaults, and the bone fields built from decades of kills. When we finished, they exchanged glances that told me they already knew. One colonel cleared his throat and delivered the official verdict, spoken with a certainty that felt rehearsed. According to their assessment, we had encountered unusually large alligators, possibly exotic crocodiles, released illegally into the wild. The stress of darkness and combat had caused misidentification. That was the conclusion they expected us to accept. I opened my mouth to argue, but the colonel raised his hand and cut me off before the first word escaped. That is the conclusion your written reports will contain. That is the version you will repeat if questioned, and this incident is classified. You will discuss it with no one, not family, not friends, not even each other. Any breach of this directive will result in severe punishment. Do I make myself clear? The civilians stared at us with eyes that held no emotion, just calculation. They knew we were telling the truth. They knew those creatures existed, yet they wanted silence. I realized then that this was not the first time soldiers had encountered such things. And it would not be the last. I responded that the order was understood. Everyone else did as well. They dismissed us with a quiet acknowledgement for surviving something we were never meant to face, and that was it. Officially, neatly, conveniently, unofficially, the truth settled into my bones like a poison. 3 years passed. I completed my service, reached my 20th year, and retired with polite congratulations from people who had no idea what memories haunted me. The official reason for leaving was time with family and opportunities beyond the uniform. The real reason was simpler. I could not keep pretending that the Everglades held nothing more dangerous than alligators. I could not wake up every day and train young soldiers to face human enemies while knowing things lurked in the swamps with greater intelligence than predators and greater malice than any insurgent. Liam stayed in the Army. He made sergeant not long ago. I hope he never again faces something like that night. Rodriguez transferred to another unit, and I heard he still carries the scar from where he tackled that creature. Arden left the service altogether and became a hunting guide in Alaska. I sometimes imagine him walking through frozen forests, scanning tracks and wondering if he sees echoes of the monsters from the swamp in every unfamiliar print. None of us talk about that night. Orders forbid it. Oaths bind it. But silence has a weight of its own, and in the quiet hours of early morning when sleep refuses to come, I see those eyes again, luminous and aware, watching from beneath black water. The Florida Everglades stretch across more than 1.5 million acres of hostile terrain. Vast untouched areas exist that no researcher has mapped and no hiker has crossed. The swamp breathes secrets. It keeps them well. And somewhere in those endless waterways, creatures move with patient intelligence, waiting for whatever trespasses into their world. The official reports claim the most dangerous thing in that region is an alligator. But you and I both know that is a lie crafted to soothe the public and bury the truth. If you ever find yourself in southern Florida and someone suggests a peaceful nighttime walk through the Everglades, do not accept. Do not even consider it. Stay indoors, lock your doors, order room service. Watch the world from behind glass, because beneath that swamp in water as black as oil, things move with purpose. Things with razor teeth, ancient scales, and eyes that remember the faces of those who escape them. My name is Marcus Delaney, retired Staff Sergeant, United States Army. And this is the truth of what we found in the Everglades. Believe it or do not. The swamp does not care. It is waiting either way. When I look back on that night, I still hear the hissing, I still feel the swamp watching, and I know this truth. Some stories do not stay buried no matter how deep the water gets. If you want more real military encounters, raw, untold, and darker than anything the official reports admit, then you are in the right place, soldier. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and tell me where you are watching from. And if you want to step deeper into the shadows with me, subscribe right now. This is Captain Rebel signing off. Stay sharp, stay ready, and never walk into the Everglades after dark.